Today we're going to talk about comparing fractions, decimals, and percents, which is 7.1a. So, with comparing fractions, decimals, and percents, a lot of the time you'll get a fraction. So let's just say that we have 3/5 as our fraction. We have a decimal, like 0.38. We have a percent, such as, let's say 58%. Okay, and they want us to compare these from greatest to least. So if they're asking us to do this, we have to think to ourselves, first of all, what does greatest to least mean? And we know greatest to least means biggest to smallest. So that means we're going to compare these three different numbers, biggest to smallest. Okay, so I can't compare these the way they are because they're not all in the same form. So I either need to make them all fractions, all decimals, or all percents. 9 times out of 10, you're probably going to make them all decimals because that's going to be the easiest thing. So I already have one as a decimal, which is 0.38. And then if you remember from last lesson, 7.1b, we know we just change a percent to decimal by taking that decimal point and moving it twice to the left. And that's going to make a 0.58. So now we have two decimals. The only thing we need to do is change 3/5, which we actually did last lesson. But just a little refresher. We changed 3/5 into a decimal by doing top in, bottom out. So we're going to put our 3 on the inside and our 5 on the outside. So I'm going to put top in, bottom out, just to remind everybody. Okay, so does 5 go into 3? No, 5 does not go into 3. So we add a decimal and a 0. And a decimal and a 0. Does 5 go into 30? Yes, 5 goes into 30, and that's 6 times, and that's an even 30, so we are complete with our decimal. So now we have 0.38, we have 0.58, and we have 0.6. Now, I always say that you should compare your decimals vertically, and remember from class that vertically means up and down. So I'm going to go ahead and put 0.6, 0.58, 0.38. Okay. Now all of these in their tenths place value, so that first number right here, they all are different, so it doesn't really matter. Because we know that our 6 is going to come first, 0.6, and then we're going to have our 0.58, and then we're going to have our 0.38. So it's actually going to be 3/5 is first. And then our 58%, and then our 0.38. But if we had numerous numbers with the same number in this tenths place value right here, that is where lining them up vertically would help. So for example, if I had a 0.3, I had 1/3 that I need to compare, and I had let's say 34%. Okay. Well, if I want to change that percent to a decimal, of course, once again, I move that decimal place twice to the left, and I get 0.34. Here I already have 0.3. And 1/3, I would do top in, bottom out. Now 3 goes into 1. It doesn't, so I add a decimal and a 0. 3 goes into 10 3 times, and we get 9, and we subtract, and we get 1. So we're going to keep getting 3s, which is a repeating decimal, so I can indicate that with a little line at the top. So now we have 0.3, 0.333 repeating, sorry about that, and then 0.34. So now if I wanted this to be ordered from least to greatest or greatest to least, it would be important to cut my decimal points like this so I can see the first part. We see all of these in the tenths place value are 3s. Okay, so after we see all of these are 3s, then we have to look in the hundredths place value. Now, here in the 0.3, I can always add a 0 to, a 0 to that, because that 0 will hold the place value of the hundredths place but not change the value of the number. So now that I look at it, and let's just say we want it greatest to least, I can see that I know my 3/4 is going to be the biggest. Okay, so this number is going to be the biggest, then I'm going to go 0.33, and then I'm going to go 0.30. And that's how you compare fractions to a decimal. They all need to be in the same form, either fractions, decimals, or percent, but 9 times out of 10 you're going to do decimals. I am just going to show you very quickly, if we were to have something with a common denominator, such as 1/5, let's say 2/10, and 3/20, okay, all three of these have a common denominator of 20. Okay, this is the least common denominator. So if I wanted to compare these, I could go ahead and multiply this fraction and make it the common denominator of 20, which would give me 4 out of 20. Here, I would have to multiply by 2. This is going to give me 4 out of 20. And then I'm going to have 3 out of 20. And then I can also compare fractions that way. And that's only if you can find a common denominator. And 9 times out of 10, it's very tricky to find one. But if you can spot one right away, then you can totally use a common denominator instead of changing them all to decimals. But that's how you can compare and order fractions, decimals, and percents. And if you have any questions, make sure that you ask me in class. Thanks.
Made with Doodlecast Pro.